You stayed up until 2 a.m. to finish something for someone else, a colleague, a friend, a client you barely know. You gave them everything, your focus, your care, your best thinking. And then you went to bed. And your own project, the one that actually matters to you, sat untouched. Again. Here's what nobody asks. Why is it so much easier to show up for others than for yourself? The answer isn't laziness. It isn't a lack of discipline. It goes deeper than that. And once you understand it, something quietly shifts. Think about the last time someone asked you for help. You probably didn't negotiate with yourself. You didn't scroll through your phone for an hour first. You didn't need to feel motivated. You just did it. But your own goals, your own writing, your health, your creative work, those feel different, heavy, loaded, somehow harder to start. You tell yourself you'll begin when the time is right, when you feel ready, when the conditions are better. The conditions never become better. And quietly, that gap between what you do for others and what you allow yourself starts to shape how you see yourself. You start to think, maybe I'm just not disciplined enough. Maybe I don't want it badly enough. Maybe something is wrong with me. But what if the problem isn't you? What if it's something much more specific? Something the brain is doing automatically, without your permission. Here's what the research actually shows. The pattern you're living isn't a character flaw. It isn't proof that you're weak or uncommitted. It's a deeply rational response to the way the human brain assigns meaning and accountability. You were not built, evolutionarily, to be your own most important client. You were built for social belonging, for reciprocity, for the tribe. When you help someone else, the brain recognizes it as socially meaningful behavior. It activates reward systems tied to connection, identity, and survival. When you work for yourself, alone, with no one watching, the brain categorizes it differently. And that difference is everything. There are two forces at work here, and understanding them changes how you see yourself. The first is called social accountability bias. When another person is involved, when they're waiting, when they're counting on you, the brain activates regions associated with reputation management and social consequence. The prefrontal cortex, which handles planning and follow-through, works harder when it perceives an audience, not because you care more, because the stakes feel real. Think of it like this. Imagine two fires. One burns in an open field where people are watching. One burns alone in a forest where no one can see it. You will always run faster toward the one with witnesses. That's not weakness. That's wiring. The second force is what psychologists call temporal discounting, the brain's tendency to devalue future rewards compared to present ones. Your own goals almost always live in the future. You won't feel the benefit of writing your book today. You won't feel healthier tomorrow from exercising once. But the gratitude from helping a friend? That's immediate, warm, concrete. The brain chooses warmth and immediacy, every time. So you're not procrastinating because you lack willpower. You're procrastinating because your brain is making a perfectly logical calculation and coming to the wrong conclusion. That's the real problem. And it means the solution isn't to try harder. It means redesigning the conditions so the brain calculates differently. Here are 4 principles, each grounded in how the brain actually changes behavior. Step 1. Borrow the accountability structure. What makes you show up for others is that someone is waiting. So build that structure for yourself, deliberately. Tell one person what you're working on and when you'll have something to show them. Not for their approval, just so the brain registers. Someone knows. The psychological mechanism here is called the Hawthorne effect. Performance improves when we believe we're being observed. Even a low-stakes observer changes how the brain weights effort. In practice, a friend, a group, a simple message. I'm working on this today. I'll check in tonight. That small shift activates the same system that makes you stay up late helping a colleague. Step 2. Make your future self a real person. Research from UCLA psychologist Hal Hershfield found something quietly unsettling. When people think about their future selves, brain scans show the same neural patterns as when they think about strangers. Your future self is, neurologically, someone you don't fully know. And you already know you give strangers your best work. So the shift is simple. Make your future self specific. Write them a letter. Give them a name. Ask, what does this person need from me today? When the future self becomes vivid, the brain starts allocating care towards them, the same care it gives to others. Step 3. Shrink the task. Until the brain says yes. The brain avoids effort that feels disproportionate to the reward it can currently perceive. That's why your own goals feel heavy to start, but someone else's urgent request feels easy. The social reward is immediate and clear. To close that gap, shrink the entry point. Not 10 pages. 1 paragraph. Not a full workout. 5 minutes of movement. Behavioral psychology calls this implementation intention. When the action is small and specific enough, the brain stops debating and starts doing. The goal isn't the 5 minutes. The goal is to remind your nervous system that starting this feels okay, that the threat it's imagining isn't real. Step 4. Separate worth from output. This one is less practical and more essential. The reason working for yourself feels heavier isn't just mechanical. It's because your own goals carry a different weight. If you help someone else and it goes wrong, you tried. If you work on your own thing and it doesn't succeed, it says something about you. That fear of self-implication is what the psychologist Carol Dweck identified in her work on fixed versus growth mindset. When you see your output as a measure of your worth, every attempt becomes a verdict. So you avoid attempting. The reframe is this: your work is not a referendum on who you are. It is an experiment you are running. Experiments don't fail. They produce data. That one cognitive shift, from verdict to experiment, reduces the brain's threat response. And when the brain doesn't feel threatened, it becomes willing to begin. Here is the simple model to carry with you. You are not someone who lacks discipline. You are someone whose brain was designed for a world where effort meant survival, and survival was social. The same care you give to others is available to you. But the brain needs a reason to direct it inward. Give it an audience. Make your future self real. Lower the threshold. Remove the verdict. These aren't hacks. They are translations, ways of speaking your brain's own language, but redirecting it toward the life that is actually yours to build. You are not more committed to others than you are to yourself. You are simply more practiced at showing up for them. That practice can be redirected, slowly, without drama. One small, witnessed, self-directed act at a time. The book that sits unfinished. The idea that keeps returning. The version of yourself you keep putting off until you're ready. You don't need to become someone different to begin. You only need to understand the system you're already living inside and make one quiet adjustment. The most important work you will ever do will have no audience at first. Do it anyway.